We've been to some of the most chaotic, war-torn places in the world, but never for something as bizarre as this.
It's been pretty amazing. Everyone we've talked to seems to feel that this is everything they ever wanted, and they all credit you for that.
Oh, I don't deserve the credit. You come down here and I'll give you a place to live. I'll give you a job. I'll give you a bed. These people are my family, my children. And when you write this up, just know that you're dealing with their lives. This is the last sacrament. Take it. Take it. Take it.
Hey everybody, this is Reaper on, and today we're going to be doing another one of Ron's reviews. As you just seen, it's on the movie The Sacrament. The Sacrament came out in 2014, and it's been filmed in Savannah, Georgia, in the USA, and it was directed by Ty West, the director of part of VHS 1, Cabin Fever 2, and House of the Devil. So, it's okay, at least as far as, his movies go. What is this about? Well, it's about a group of people who go to an undefined country to document a cult where one of the people who was filming this, their sister, lives. So she kind of invited them there, or invited him there, not knowing that the other two people would be coming. This is actually based off of a real-life event. It was based off of the Jonestown Massacre, which happened in 1978, which was a mass suicide orchestrated by Jim Jones, whose actions eventually, for this event, killed over 900 people. So it was one of the largest mass suicides ever. It was just horrific. There are actually quite a few actors in this. I won't be going through them all, but the one that really stood out the most in this movie is Gene Jones. Oddly enough, with that name. And the one thing that I really remember him from is the gas station scene from No Country for Old Men, which is probably the best part of that whole movie, even though I really like that movie. He just does a standout performance in this.
3 of us. All that's left. We couldn't live this way anymore, but I couldn't let him go. I tried. God knows I tried.
He's just very charismatic and definitely seems like he could be a cult leader. Also, another thing that's kind of odd about this movie is that even though it's sometimes considered a disturbing movie, it's more based on the context of it rather than what's actually in the movie. Because the movie, for about an hour of it, the first hour of it, is pretty happy. It's actually pretty happy-go-lucky, with just a couple creepy scenes somewhat sprinkled in. Anyway, like I was saying, you follow the people who are looking around through the cult, talking to different people, and it really doesn't get creepy until about the hour mark when the little girl shows up and gives them a note.
What is it? What's it say?
Let's get on to the parental guide. For those of you who don't know what the parental guide is, the parental guide follows the IMDb parental guide, which has 5 categories. You can score 1 through 10 in any of these categories. These do not affect my overall rating of the movie. This just tells you how much content of that kind is in it. The categories are sex and nudity, violence and gore, profanity, drug and alcohol use, and frightening and intense scenes. Like I said, you can score 1 through 10 in these, 10 meaning that it has the most of that content in it, 1 meaning that it has little to none of that content in it. So up first we have sex and nudity.
If she's getting high and sleeping with the guy, what's the point of this place?
Yep, that's all the sex and nudity that you actually see in the movie. There is, as you can see, no nudity, and the sex is very implied. So that's it. I'm going to say this thing's a 2 out of 10. It has next to nothing in it. Alright, the second category is violence and gore.
He's got a gun. Hey, no, come on. No!
You should have never come here.
There's not really a whole lot of violence and gore in this, honestly. The last half hour has the most in it, and it's fairly minimal. There's not a ton of violence or really on-screen gore. It is, like I said, it does end with a mass suicide, just like how Jonestown, the real event, happened. But it's done so with like poison. So you just see people drinking this and then pretty much falling over and dying, foaming from the mouth, which is kind of what you'd expect. So I mean, that can be rather grisly and unsettling, but it's not, most of this isn't inherently violent or extremely gory or extremely violent towards anyone in particular for the majority of it. That being said, there are some, and like I said, there's the mass suicide. So I'm going to say that this is a 6 out of 10. Definitely not the goriest, definitely not the most violent movie I've ever seen, but it still has a pretty impactful amount of violence, mostly through the mass suicide. Then we have profanity.
What the fuck is going on?
Honestly, I couldn't find much profanity in this. I went through a couple times just clicking around through the movie, and I just had to sit there and wait for like 20 minutes before they would swear like once. So very little profanity in this. There is a little bit, but not that much for an R-rated movie or for a disturbing movie. So I'm going to say that this is a 4 out of 10. It's pretty tame in its profanity. Up next, we have drug and alcohol use. Now this one, although there is some drinking and some drug use, as you can see, it's mostly based off of the poisoning that's going on, because even though I don't think that Jim Jones had any sort of alcohol in it, that would probably be the safest thing in it anyway. But there is the poison part, which is, I guess, drugs. So, mass poisoning, mass suicide still kind of goes along with that. So I'm going to say it's an 8 out of 10. There is a good amount of drug and alcohol use, and it does become a pretty big part of the movie towards the end of it. In the start and the middle part, there's next to none. I think there's a little bit of drinking, but that's about it. Then we have the final category, which is frightening and intense scenes.
Get out of here! Get up! Go! Let's go! Come on! Hurry! I'm burning this place to the ground! Go!
I'm going to say that this one's an 8 out of 10 in frightening and intense scenes. Not because any scene is particularly jumpy or somewhat frightening in its context. It is somewhat frightening, but not in the way where it just jumps out and scares you or has some sort of extreme violent part to it that just sticks with you. That being said, the mass suicide could definitely still stick with you. And there are some violent parts in it, like I said. But mostly it's just the intensity of this, knowing that this actually happened at one point in time to real people, and it's just more sad and stays with you rather than being frightening. So I'm still going to say it's an 8 out of 10. Let's get on to the pros and the cons. The pros of this movie, it's pretty short. It's only 90 minutes long. I think cutting out credits and whatnot, I think it's like 88 minutes long or something like that. So it's a very short movie. Most of the actors in it are actually pretty likable. They do a pretty good job throughout. And mainly, it's Gene Jones that steals the show as father, being the creepy cult leader guy. Because, again, he is very charismatic, and he's just pretty likable. The cons in this, it is somewhat slow, and there are scenes that seem to kind of drag on a little bit longer than they need to be. It's usually from the point of view perspectives, because part of this is somewhat like a found footage one, even though it's, I guess they sat there and filmed it all themselves and eventually did come back, so I guess it's not completely found footage. But it's that kind of style where it's a POV shot where you can kind of see what's going on. That being said, it's not jerky or jumpy throughout most of it. It's fairly, it kind of does this towards you, but you can still focus on what the heck is going on rather than it just being something like that. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it is somewhat slow though. So just keep that in mind. And if you do know the story to this, which I kind of already spoiled, or if you just know about the Jonestown Massacre, then you're not going to be as, I guess, surprised by the ending, or the ending won't be as impactful. But that being said, it's still there because they couldn't really go, too far off of the real event, I guess. Even though they never claim that this was based on the Jonestown Massacre, and they never say where it was, but it's pretty close to the real event. So, that being said, though, my overall rating of The Sacrament is gonna be a 7 out of 10. I found it pretty enjoyable, even though it was somewhat slow. I would still say it's probably Ty West's best movie, because the other ones, even though I liked House of the Devil, VHS 1, it was okay. And Cabin Fever 2 was Cabin Fever 2. So if you think it sounds interesting, if you just want to watch a kind of creepy horror movie that's more suspenseful than it is gory or violent, then this one's a pretty decent choice. Anyway, that'll be the end of this video, I guess. Tell me what you thought about The Sacrament. If you liked it, if you hated it, if you were in between, somewhere like that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have been having a good day, keep on having a good day. If you guys have been having a bad day, I hope this video made your day just a little bit better. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye.